Thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today I have a guest. His name is Mr. JonesX, and you will find him on TikTok. Mr. JonesX has about 200,000 followers, and I want to talk to him about like when he started getting the 5,000, the 10,000, 50,000. Like what was his reaction? And also, he has over 6 million likes on his TikTok alone, and then he's got the other social channels. So welcome to my show, Mr. JonesX.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having
Good.
me.
So you have a really unique and I think pretty awesome TikTok channel. You are an advocate for so many different groups, and you're standing up for people that are not necessarily always standing up for themselves. And I love your messaging, and I think my listeners are going to love your messaging. And I don't know. First, I want to
Thank you.
find out, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Florida?
No. So I grew up predominantly in the Washington, D.C. metro area.
Okay.
So Northern Virginia. I've been all over the country, but I would say that the Washington, D.C. metro area, which we lovingly refer to as the DMV,
Yeah.
would be my home.
Cool. And were your family advocates and very liberal as you were growing up? How did you kind of come up with this being so positive and liberal and open to people? Tell me that.
Boy, is that a story.
Okay.
There's so much to unpack there, but I'll try to keep it, as short as possible. So, my parents are of mixed race,
Okay.
uh, and although I'm told often I don't look it, when my parents both went to segregated schools.
Okay.
So, and I grew up, I don't know if you've ever heard of the court case Loving versus Virginia, but it was like the Supreme Court case that decided whether or not people of different races could be married in the
Oh,
United
wow.
States. Yeah. And so that happened in my state,
Yeah.
not very far before me being born.
Wow.
We're talking like 6 or 7 years.
Isn't that crazy? Like, if you think about if you think about the history of time and stuff, like even slavery and being able to vote, women being able to vote.
Right.
It's crazy. It's not that long ago. And if you think about the timeline.
Yeah, and when you talk to people in this country, because I guess we have like the shortest, like we have the memory of a gnat.
Yeah, exactly.
When you talk to people in this country, they act like, oh, that was 1,000 years
Yeah,
ago.
exactly.
And I'm like, no, it was yesterday, literally.
Yeah, exactly.
So my parents growing up, man, whew, like I would literally watch people say the most insane things to my mom specifically most of the time about her having biracial children. Not so often to my dad, but also my dad was like 6'7".
Yeah.
So he just wasn't the type of person that you would approach with that type of nonsense. But I guess that they were kind of not even intentionally, but like trailblazers in their own respect, right? And so, it just gave me a unique perspective on life growing up, in that manner. Because when I was in elementary school, there was very few Black children, let alone people that were multiracial, at least where I lived at the time.
Right.
And so it was interesting. But I wouldn't, my dad, he was very, 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 I don't know if liberal would be the way that I would describe it. But in terms of like Black empowerment, was a big thing for him.
Yeah.
That was a major thing for him. He wouldn't go to work on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. He wouldn't go to work on Election Day. He said, no, like my ancestors, you know what I'm saying? He's like, my father and the people before me fought to have the right to vote. I'm going to honor them by making sure that I'm off that day and that I'm at the ballot box, so that I can be able to vote, and nobody's going to tell me otherwise.
All right, now I know where you got it from. Now I know where you got your groove at. So I got it now.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the name Mr. JonesX?
So that's interesting. I was given a tribal name when I was a child.
Okay.
By my parents when I was born, and when I started my career, I realized very quickly that tribal name was not going to get me callbacks for jobs. Like people weren't interested. First of all, they couldn't pronounce it.
Okay.
And secondly, You know, it didn't matter how much education I had or what job experience I had prior to that. Because they couldn't pronounce it or because it sounded too ethnic, they just didn't call me back. And so my father's last name is Jones.
Okay.
And so I changed my name legally and dropped my first name and my last name. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and so I adopted my father's last name and kept the anglicized name, I guess you would call it, you
Yeah.
know, and it changed literally my career trajectory. I mean, I started getting callbacks and stuff like that, but as I got older, I'm like, man, I had to change literally even my name just to be able to survive. And so in the many ways, the same way like Malcolm X changed his name from
Yeah.
Malcolm Little to Malcolm X, you know, I dropped my first name almost entirely and just said Jones X.
Yeah.
Like, so that's kind of how it came about.
I got on TikTok, I think, because of my nieces and nephews were watching it, and then I got addicted to it, and then it's like
Right.
I'm sitting there for 15 minutes, and I look up at the clock, and it's 2.5 hours later. How did you discover TikTok first, and then how did you kind of find out that you're so creative, and you're such a I don't even want to call you a content creator, because I think you're more than that. But how did you discover like your talent for being able to produce these awesome videos?
To be honest with you, I had no idea. Like, so my kids, they would send me. I have kids and they're in their 20s now, but they were both still, I think, late teenagers. They would send
Okay.
me these TikToks, like in 2020, 2021, and I would look at them and I'm like, you know, this is funny. This
Yeah.
is funny. And I was like, but it's not really me. I was never a social media person. I was never
Okay.
into it. Facebook, Instagram, never really was my thing. And then one day I was doing exactly what you said, you know, going down a rabbit hole, doom scrolling.
Yeah.
And I saw these people on TikTok saying all of these absurd things that weren't like based in reality or fact.
Yeah.
Like they were anti-black, you know, anti-LGBTQIA plus, anti-woman. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, what
Yeah.
is this? Because I wasn't used to interacting with these type of people in real life. Well, at least not them being so bold about it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I have to correct this. And so uh, TikTok Live had just started, but like I think at the time you could only have like one or maybe two people as
Mm-hmm.
guests, and you had to have like X amount of followers. But I didn't have any followers at all. And
Yeah.
so I was like, how do I get followers? And my son and daughter were like, well, make some videos. And I was like, about what? They're like, about the stuff that you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I made a couple of videos, political based videos, social justice based videos. And I mean, they literally just took off. And then
S-
boom, here we are.
So were you shocked, like when you got, let's say, your first 10,000 followers? Like, what was your reaction? You're like, did you feel like it's crazy that
I've
this
been
is happening?
banned 11 times.
Oh, you have.
So I've had as much as over 500,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this account now with the 200, nearly 200K, and then I have like two or three backups with over 30K, were like me rebuilding.
Wow. I mean, that's amazing though. But were you shocked whenever you started having all these followers? And
I remember when I hit 30,000
yeah,
after like the second video of mine going viral. And I woke up one morning, I was on my way to the airport because I had to go to LA for something. I woke up one morning and I picked up my phone and I opened it up and I had so many notifications that I couldn't even go
yeah,
through them. And I'm like, what is this? And I scroll to my page and it says 32,000 followers. And I'm like, what?
that's awesome
Uh,
though. I mean,
yeah. So
so a couple of more questions about your TikTok account. What type of DMs do you get? Do you get some crazy DMs from? I mean, because you're reaching out, you're reaching a lot of different audiences that are on your side, right?
right.
But then you have a lot of audiences of people that are probably watching your videos that are not on your side
Uh-huh.
and have a completely different way of thinking than you do. So give me a couple of examples of some crazy DMs that you've gotten.
So before we even get to the DMs, the worst thing or the craziest thing that's ever happened to me is I got swatted. Somebody literally sent a SWAT team to my house and said that I was like engaging in you know, dealing narcotics. Literally sent a SWAT team to my house.
Wow.
So that was the craziest thing that ever happened to me. That was I think in 2022. the summer of 2022, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
And were your
Uh,
kids home with you when this
oh yeah.
happened?
Oh yeah. I was on live. I was literally live streaming when they showed up.
I can't even. I don't even know what to say. Like that's
Right.
insane.
But yes, I've gotten death threats, marriage proposals, women offering to pay me money to have children. Um, like I a lot of things. I have a speech impediment, believe it or not. So I have an issue with stuttering. I've even had people go into my DMs and tell me, uh, "Why don't you stop using filler words?" And I was like, "Well, I wish that that was a possibility, but I
Yeah,
have to use filler words in order not to stutter." So thank you,
yeah.
thank you for the advice. Um,
And are
so
you
they're
getting people
interesting.
pushback because you're a huge LGBTQ plus advocate, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. But are you getting people, the homophobic, people in the southern states or wherever they are,
Oh
just
yes, I
sending you?
listen. I have people literally. So I have my nails painted almost always. Like I almost always have my nails painted. I take my daughters to the nail salon to to get their nails painted, and then they pick out colors for me. And
Yeah,
it's a daddy daughter thing. It's something
love
that
it.
we do. Typically, like I'll do things for Palestine, or I'll do things for whatever is going on at the time.
Yeah.
Like last month. I had Pride nails, and those were fun. Uh, but I do get a lot of people that have a lot of things to say about me, like
Hmm.
questioning my sexuality or my gender identity or whatever, whatever, whatever. But for the most part, I'm so unaffected by it. I don't
Yeah.
care. I'm like, you don't love yourself. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, do you feel supported by your followers? I'm so amazed that some of the things that you've talked about on there that people avoid. And I think
Mhm.
it's amazing that you have this many people. And I know this is, like another the number, however, 11 accounts that you've had banned, but 6 million likes is like a pretty amazing support system just for
Yeah,
this one account that you have. I mean, do you
I
feel
push the
supported? Do you
boundaries.
feel it?
I do. I push the boundaries heavily against all of the social norms, against all of the societal structures, against Christianity,
Hmm.
against gender identities and where they derived, what they derived of. I mean, I push and push and push and push the boundaries, and people still love me. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people, even those that are my supporters, sometimes get this uneasy feeling, like, ooh, and I tell them all the time, if you feel uncomfortable right now,
Yeah,
that's a good thing, because nobody grows from places where they're comfortable.
yeah,
Comfortable leads to complacency, and there's no growth there.
yeah,
And so sometimes, in order to deconstruct all of these things that we've been taught, and things that we've learned, you got to really have some dark,
yeah.
moments.
So let me ask you a question just about where the state of the country. So, um, do you think the country has ever been this divided, or do you think things have been this bad in American history?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Leading up to the passing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act,
Mhm.
things were wildly contentious.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, when we're talking about the Montgomery bus boycotts, when we're
Yeah.
talking about sit-ins at restaurants, desegregating schools, Ruby Bridges, the first time that she had to be literally um, escorted by the National Guard
Yeah.
into school for the first time. Mind you, Ruby Bridges is only 67 years old, um,
Yeah.
and
It's
has a mental
crazy.
frame
Like
of count.
people like I
Right.
think we were talking about this before we started. People
Yeah.
think that this, all these stuff is hundreds or thousands of years old, and it's
Right.
within our lifetimes, a lot of people's
Mhm.
lifetimes still. So
Yeah. So I think that things were probably equitably contentious then. Um, I mean, also you have to think uh, fire hoses being turned on
hmm.
to Black and Brown Americans, dogs being sicked on them. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
fire hoses where the pressure was so high it like literally tore their skin. And then we think about things like Stonewall.
Yep.
Uh, and so yeah, I mean, I would say that they have been, and we had a lull, But you have to remember, like, the people who were throwing rocks at Ruby Bridges or spitting at her or trying to, shake the bus
Hmm.
of the children integrating schools and tip it over and things of that nature. Like, many of those people are still alive.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't go away. And
Yeah.
some of those were the kids that were going to school with these people, and their parents were, bigots. And so,
Yeah. It's scary when you think of it that way, right? I mean, it's
mhm,
just like that those people are part of our society still, and it's not
right,
just. And the reason why I asked, do you think it's worse than it ever has been, is because I think social media is amplifying like all this
absolutely.
stuff, and we're a global world now with social media and with 24/7 news stations and everything. I mean, it's just like, I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's just constantly in our face.
Yeah. Well, and that's the difference. I remember having this conversation about crime and about protecting your children from bad people and things of that nature. And I'm a kid that grew up in the '80s, and I'm like, look, things were bad back then too. We just didn't have 24-hour news cycle. During the crack era, and we didn't have
Yeah.
social media either, so it's not something that was like literally in your face all the time.
Yeah, I
But
always
it,
think
it
about
was
what my
worse
life would
then.
I always think about what my life have been like, because I grew up in the '80s as well. Like, what would my life be if I would have had social media growing up? It would have been a
Right,
completely different life that I have
right,
now, probably.
right.
So, the news came out this week that Kamala is going to be she's running, and she's going to be
Kamala Harris. You could say it. Kamala Harris is going to be
she
Madam
is going to
President
be
Harris.
our president, Madam
Right.
President. And what was your reaction whenever you heard that Biden was going to step down?
Um, I was happy. Uh, well, mixed emotions, right? So I don't necessarily like our support um, of Israel, and not because of anything other than I feel like there has to be another way,
Hmm.
to solve that problem. Like, there has to be another way, right?
Yeah.
And so much as how we went about it, I knew that Gen Z wasn't going to be here for it. I knew that Gen Z was just like, no, buddy, you're
Yeah.
not it. Another old, white man leader is just not what they are interested in, and it's the truth. It's just not what they're looking for. I think that Donald Trump was a retaliation of the Barack Obama presidency. I
Hmm.
mean, I hate to say it, but I feel
Yeah.
like that's what it was. It was blowback. And so I was happy to hear that he was going to step aside in hopes of someone younger. And then when the news came that it was going to be Kamala, I'm not going to lie. My first initial reaction was like, oh man, we're cooked.
Same. I thought the
Yeah.
same thing.
But not because I didn't personally believe in her, but because I know how misogynistic and how anti black the country
Hmm.
that I live in is.
Yeah.
And so
We're on the same page.
yeah, so immediately I was like, oh, we're cooked. And then I started to sit back and think about it. And I'm like, how has the demographics of this country changed since 2016? Tons of boomers have passed away,
Hmm.
whether it be for COVID or just old age or what have you. Since 2016, that's almost a decade ago.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the voter base. Roe v. Wade was overturned. That's huge. The
Yeah.
Chevron decision, how COVID was handled. Um, I mean, so many. Oh, all of the over 600 pieces of legislation that are anti-LGBTQIA
Yeah.
plus in this country, and again, Gen Z's not having it,
Yeah.
and women are scared and angry,
Yeah.
rightfully so.
I know. I remember it was, 3 or 4 days ago, whenever I was on TikTok looking, and I see these women coming on and talking about they just got off a call with 85 other women talking about how they're going to support. And then the next video was like, I just got off a Zoom call with 500 women, and it was maxed out. And my friends that were trying to get in there, like people, I could
There
feel
was a
the
call with
energy.
40,000 women, and they raised $1.5 million.
It's great.
Yeah,
It's
and I mean record-setting campaign donations, individual donations. bigger than Bernie.
Yeah.
Record-setting donations. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars in a matter of a couple of days is wild.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I didn't give until she stepped up or he stepped aside. I didn't give anything to the election. I was doing postcards and doing all the other stuff that I could do to help with the election, but I wasn't giving. And as soon as she came, my husband came in and said, "We're giving." So that's when we did it.
I love that. Yeah. And so, I mean, I put out merch. I'm going to use the merch to raise money to go to the campaign.
Yeah, I bought 3 of your shirts yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, you like that, don't you?
I love it. I love it.
Bitch.
Yeah, I love it. What's your website? It's
tough.ltd.
Tough.ltd. Go there because there were some amazing. So my aunt is I told my aunt about this interview with you before I did it, and I sent her your TikTok yesterday or the day before, and she's like, "I love him." And then I said, "Well, look at the shirt I just bought you that he has on his website." And she's like, "I love him even more."
So I just thought that it was the funniest thing because people were so upset. Like, where's Joe? Why did Joe send out a tweet or an X or whatever? I don't know what the hell you call any of those things anymore. But he's like, why didn't he address the public? I'm like, bro has COVID. Like, relax, guys. He's gonna make an announcement. I promise you. Yeah. And then Boebert coming out like, I need proof of life. And then Kamala getting the nod essentially. And like literally flipping this whole entire election cycle on its head. And I'm like, man, what if this was Joe Biden, Dark Brandon?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the final super villain move or whatever, because they see him as a villain.
And don't you think Trump and his team have to be scared now? I mean, they've got to know it's coming.
They're shook. They're absolutely shook. They don't know what to do because
she's a prosecutor. Exactly. I mean, she's
misogyny and is not going to win this for you, friend.
No,
like this is not the move.
And I was talking to my aunt about this. I can't wait for the debate. She's like, Trump is never going to debate.
He will never debate her. He would never.
But he said he is.
Trump says that he'll do a lot of things that he actually has no intentions of doing.
But if he does that, then she's definitely got it.
She will mop the floor with it.
Yes, I can't wait.
I'm certain of it.
I would pay anything to just see that. I mean, it's just
that's like a pay-per-view special in and of itself. It really is.
It's $150 special.
Oh, absolutely. But he railed against ABC immediately. So I was like, yep, he's shook. And then they tried to articles of impeachment, levy articles of impeachment against her, and I'm like, oh yeah, the RNC is absolutely shook.
Yeah. And
they weren't prepared for this.
And his vice president pick is like, it's like he couldn't have had a worse week.
You really couldn't have. We're talking about the guy who says that people should stay in domestic violence relationships for the children. And I'm like, buddy.
Yeah,
like that wasn't the move.
No.
And then his speaking engagements since the RNC have been lackluster at best. And I mean, I think that's giving it too much credit. He's at a net negative polling right now. I think like -6. That's not good.
Who do you think she will pick for her vice president? Any predictions?
I mean, I can tell you who I would like.
Tell me who you'd like.
I would like Buttigieg.
Yeah, I would too, but I don't know.
But I think that's pushing the envelope.
I do. I think so too.
Too far. I was like, we need Mayor Pete.
Yeah,
because he's likable.
Yeah.
But I think that that's not going to help with the moderates.
Yeah.
Or the right leaning people who just don't like your McCain era Republicans. It's not gonna help. It's not gonna do anything for them. And so it's probably going to have to be Kelly or Shapiro or something of that nature. And to be honest with you, I don't care who the vice president is. I'm going to be, to be completely honest with you, I have no care for that. I mean, it's just I'm not very concerned. I think what is most important is who is the head of that ticket right now.
So, do you think this country, as racist as it's become, or how they have come out from the woodwork since when Trump became president? I guess they were always there, but they felt more comfortable. Do you think this country is ready for not just a woman, but a Black woman to be president?
They better get ready.
Yeah, good.
They better get ready. So let me tell you this. the vast majority of the country is not as bad as we think it is. They're just quiet.
Yeah.
They're
That's what
just
my aunt
quiet.
says too.
They're just quiet. They are not on social media. They're
Yeah.
not, running around screaming at the top of their lungs. They're not showing up to a rally where everybody's wearing the same hat and the same t-shirt and has the same bumper sticker and carrying the same flag and has the same mug and
Hmm.
the same like keychain and bought the same NFT and went out and got the tennis shoes and has a doormat. You know what I mean? Like they're just not those people
Yeah.
because that's cult behavior,
Yeah.
right? And so on the left, they're just a little bit more reserved. They're just going along to get along. And so I think that the vast majority of the country, like when we look at how they feel about abortion rights, nearly 70% of the country is in full support of pro-choice.
Hmm.
But the ones who are opposed to it are loud.
So let me ask you a question because I love your support, obviously, because I'm a gay man of the LGBTQ plus community. So as a cis straight male, how did you, and I have to say, people like you are the people that are so comfortable with their sexuality because you know who you are and you're stepping up and you're an ally and you're just
I'm not.
okay, tell me. Go.
I'm not an ally. I hate that word
Okay,
because
well tell me.
allyship would imply that somehow you owe me something in return for the things that I do for you, and you don't owe me anything. Like the oppressed cannot be an allyship with the oppressor, right?
Mm,
And so if anything, I'm an advocate. If anything, I'm an accomplice. But to be an ally, I don't agree with
I
that
like the way that
language.
that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't agree with that language simply because, like I said, it implies that it's like a quid pro quo. And I
Mm,
don't think that people who are typically oppressed by my mere existence, and I know that they are, right? Because I have privilege that you don't have and will never have. And so I don't think that we could truly be an allyship. I think if you want to advocate for a community, then you have to be the type of person that's willing to throw yourself in front of that community
mhm.
to protect them and not expect a gold star or a pat on the back or a job well done. And to be honest with you, I feel like it's the least that I could possibly do, especially as a black man who understands that Bayard Rustin, James Baldwin, Angela Davis, Lori Lightfoot. I mean, there's Marsha P. Johnson. I mean, there's so many people in the queer community who, had they not done what they did, I
Mhm.
would not have the ability and the right to do what I'm doing right now.
I just wish more people thought like you because it's really unique. And I mean, you have to know that it's unique, and maybe you have a group of friends that are like you, and so you don't think it's as unique, but it is super unique for someone to be so open and to be so supportive of so many communities. So
I get
it's
that. I have a sibling that is trans. Myself, I don't really know at this, like at this age, how I would, like define my gender identity, but it's always not really aligned
Mhm.
with, the quote unquote acceptable identity of a man.
Okay.
In terms of, like, even in high school, I would go out and literally buy the women's Jordans because they came in colors like pink and purple, and those are the colors I wanted to wear, and so I
Yeah.
did it. I have 4 ear piercings in my ear. I remember a teacher asking me, "Well, I know one side means that you're straight, and one side teacher, and the other side means that you're gay, but you have 4 holes. What does that mean?" And I was like, "Shit, I don't know." You know what I'm saying? Like I like it. Like I'll wear dangly earrings. Like I said, paint my nails.
Yeah.
I don't care about wearing bold colors. I actually like rainbows. My favorite color is purple.
Yeah.
So I mean, like none of those things ever mattered to me. I was like, y'all don't have anything better to do than worry about somebody's gender identity, because you have to understand, like all gender identity is the outward expression of one inner self.
Yeah.
And my inner self is, I guess, you know, unbothered by what you think gender roles are supposed to look like.
I grew up in Miami. There was a lot of homophobia in that I grew up with.
Right.
And now Miami Beach and South Beach is, the heart of gay Florida now. But, I just think back in the 80s when I grew up and how different it is now. Because, like, if I would have come out in the 80s, I would have probably been killed or something possibly. And now kids are coming out when they're 12 and 13 or even younger, and their parents, for the most more and more parents are starting to accept that.
Well, I think that they're being forced to accept it because, like, what do? Just throw your kids in the street? Now, I know that that does happen.
Yeah, it does.
And that's one of the big things that I advocate for, and what me and my partner, they go by No Rads, are working to combat here, especially in Florida, is taking care of those that are unhoused in the queer community because of the social stigmas or family issues. But go ahead, I apologize.
No, I mean, do you feel that the world is becoming more accepting of the LGBTQ plus community than it was when we were growing up?
I think that more people are accepting than not. But here's the thing, though: the fear mongering campaigns are massive, right? And so they're telling people to be afraid of things that they otherwise wouldn't be afraid of. Trans people have literally used the bathroom with you and your friends and your family members for decades, and it's been a non-issue. But one of the main tenets of fascism, or these fascist ideologies, and what I like to call Christo-fascism, is that you have to identify an enemy. And so, like, oh, it's the people coming across the border, it's the gays, it's trans people, it's all of the, and when it's actually none of those people. Like, none of those people are the cause for your discomfort. Lack of education, lack of access to resources like healthcare and livable wages, like those are your problems. But they have to give you these other things to be angry about, so that you're not paying attention to the lack of resources that the government is providing for you, that these people who are in office are providing for you. They're like, hey, what I'm saying, don't look over here at us. We're gonna keep being rich and making rich people richer. Your problem is these people who literally don't impact you on a day-to-day basis at all.
Yeah.
So it's literally a political ploy, and the fact that they had to use marginalized communities as political fodder is disgusting. It's deplorable, honestly.
Why do you think DeSantis is still in office, though, in Florida after all this anti-LGBTQ
gerrymandering?
Okay.
Gerrymandering. He removed a whole bunch of people from the voter rolls arbitrarily. He incentivized a lot of people from moving out of state here during COVID. And then, he changed a lot of voting districts in his favor. And luckily, he can't run again, after this term. But I honestly think that Florida will flip blue this election cycle. Absolutely.
Wow. That would be amazing.
Yeah, DeSantis going after Disney, DeSantis's policies with immigration, which hurt people even in the Miami area who would typically support him, and the Latin base that got him, that helped get him into office. He hurt a lot of those people, and I don't think that they're going to continue to support, the conservative party moving into this election cycle. I just don't.
If Trump, whenever he loses, what do you think's going to happen? Do you think there's going to be a big uprise? Because I'm a little worried about it, to be honest.
I do think they'll try. Yeah. I do think they will, because not enough happened to the people who, participated in January 6th. A big enough statement wasn't made about how this is not acceptable behavior. And so, to be honest with you, I do think that they'll try something. However, this time, I think that we'll be a lot more prepared, and it'll be handled a lot differently.
Yeah.
I think it'll be shut down a lot faster.
I mean, I live in a bit of a bubble because I'm in Boston, and it's super liberal, and it's there's not a lot of that craziness happening here. But even living here in Massachusetts and Boston, like, I'm still like a little worried, like, what's going to happen, because the state overall is a liberal state, but you get 50 miles outside of Boston, it gets a little backwoods a little bit sometimes. Right. So, those people coming in, or if you go up to New Hampshire, it seems, a little off there to me. So that's worrying whenever she comes and she is the new president. It's a little worrying.
I do believe that there'll be some backlash. But to be honest with you, I don't know that Trump is really going to be able to escape all of the criminal prosecutions. I mean, he's already been convicted of 34 felonies.
I know. Yeah.
And and the sentencing is in September. And honestly, he can't leave the state. I mean, he can't even leave the United States to go to the vast majority of these countries
Yeah.
as a representative. And so, if he's not even welcome in these other countries as a representative of the United States, how could we possibly elect him to be the next president? And I mean, if we're looking at this from, if we take a step back and we're looking at this from a logical standpoint, what policies does he honestly have? I can tell you everything that Trump is against. Everything. I
Yeah.
can't tell you anything that he's for.
Yeah. That's a good point. That is a really good point. And I hope people really take that to heart, though, because that's true. I can't think of anything that he's been pro for or
Right. Like he's anti-LGBTQIA plus, anti-abortion, anti-civil rights essentially for many people.
yeah.
And if it's not him directly, it's Project 2025. It's Agenda 47, and like these things scream fascism.
Yeah.
I mean, like scream fascism, and he's not kind to people with disabilities. He's not kind to those who have served in the military. He's certainly not kind to women. He has no, empathy for, starving children, disabled people. I mean, it's like literally he just is an unkind, uncaring, unempathetic human being. And who, this person's evil, that person's evil, this person's evil, that person bad, that person bad. And he really has nothing positive to say. And that can't last forever.
I have one more political question for you, and then I'll get off the political thing because I just think I actually never wanted to make my show political, and I felt like for you, I wanted to do this. I wanted to come on because I feel like maybe because we're on the same page with things, but I just felt like this was a perfect time to do it with Kamala coming in and stepping in. So my last question that's political is, what do you think is going to happen, like to the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, the Mitch McConnells, the Matt Gaetz, whenever she takes office? I mean, I can barely even watch these meme videos of Marjorie Taylor Greene because she's just so ridiculous, and I just can't even believe that this person is a representative of this country. Like it's insane to me. So, what do you think is going to happen to those people whenever she's our president?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, the Republican Party prior to MAGA was dead. I mean, if you look at the last two candidates that ran against Barack Obama, they were just bland. They were milquetoast. They couldn't really, engage the people of America. And I think that the boisterousness of Trump, really got a lot of people going. And so, it was, like I said, it was a backlash. A lot of people voted that had never voted before, but much of that voter base is gone. And so I think that the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Matt Gaetz and the Lauren Boeberts and the things of that nature will be a relic. I think that they'll, float off into Never Land, hopefully, because I mean, they barely won their re-elections and they're not going to win the next one.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that the vast majority of American citizens, and I want to believe in America, right? I don't think the vast majority of American citizens really support this.
I hope you're right. I mean,
these talks of Jewish space lasers and Matt Gaetz, with all of his allegations with young children and so on and so forth, and Lauren Boebert, who,
yeah,
I don't like. Literally, I'm like, hold on. So you mean to tell me that you're the party of family values, right? And like you cheated on your husband, Marjorie Taylor Greene cheated on her husband. Like you're at a family friendly place giving handies. Like what is going on, guys?
Yeah.
Like sounds like y'all need a lot of therapy.
Yeah, it does, exactly. It feels like it should be a really bad sitcom or something, like sometimes
a reality show.
Yeah,
a scripted reality show almost.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just a couple more questions I have for you. If you could meet one person and have a dinner with them. Let's say two people. You could invite two people to dinner. Who would those two people be, and what would the conversation be about? And I'm talking about anybody in the world, dead or alive, anybody throughout history. Who would those two people be that you would want to come to dinner with you?
James Baldwin
Okay.
would be high on that list because the way that he was able to articulate things, like to paint a picture with words, was just absolutely amazing.
Okay.
And I could literally sit there and listen to him for hours. And then Audre Lorde, like to listen to her talk about intersectionality and about what it is to not be a feminist but be a womanist, and both of them give unique perspective because they're able to show you how you advocate and build community from the bottom up. Like you identify the most marginalized people within the society. And if you can lift them up, right, then by the very virtue of all of their needs being met, then most certainly mine as a cisgender heterosexual man, my needs would be met. Because if
Yeah.
we identify like the most marginalized in the society and we take care of all of their needs, then there's no way in the world that my needs aren't being met because I don't need as many accommodations as they do, right?
Yeah.
But I would pick their brain. And like I said, I could just listen to them talk for hours.
Yeah. Cool. That's awesome. And my last question is, where do you see yourself? And this is not a job interview because it sounds like a job interview question, but I think that you have so many awesome ideas, and the way that you think, it's just amazing to me. And where do you see yourself kind of in 10 years? And I believe I read that you do some speaking engagements now
Mhm.
and stuff. So tell me like what your ultimate life would be like if you could pick it in 10 years.
Um, I would like to open as many community centers, community access centers as I can in the United States, to be honest with you, and just be involved in that, like giving people a place to turn to under any and all circumstances. Hey, listen, I need, job. Okay, well, great. We have a computer lab here. We'll help you write your resume, and even do, some basic computer training. Maybe even have some coding classes there. Hey, we have an industrial kitchen here. So not only are we feeding people in the community that are unhoused, but also for those who would like to open their own food truck or open their own restaurant or want to get into the into the culinary field. Hey, it's a teaching kitchen. So not only are we going to be feeding people, but we're also going to be teaching you, to direct you on a career path, to have a place where children could come after school, low or no cost, or during the summer, low or no cost. Shower set up for, again, people who are unhoused, a book closet, a clothes closet, a food pantry, so on and so forth, like a community where they can come and sign up for social benefits. Because if they don't know how to navigate, that arena, if they don't know how to navigate the paperwork or, the legal system or so, things of that nature. Hey, listen, we got somebody in here to help you with that. Social workers, therapists, a day where we cut hair for people who can't afford a haircut. Those types of things, like just really be in the community and be a place, that is not only a safe haven, but actually gives people a place to turn to when they don't believe that they have anywhere to go.
That's awesome. Have you ever thought about running for office for something?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Not interested.
Okay.
I don't want to be, like in the public spotlight necessarily. And I know it doesn't seem like that because I'm on TikTok and I do have a large platform and things of that nature. But, I also have kids and I don't want their lives disrupted by constantly having to, people, in their faces or, hey, aren't you? I mean, it already happens to a very small extent. We were literally standing in the airport coming back from the DMV. I went to go visit my parents a couple weeks ago. And this lady just came up to me while I was standing outside of the bathroom. My daughters were going to use the bathroom. It's like, oh my God, I so love your show. I
That's
so love your
awesome.
show. I can't believe I just got to meet you. And I was like, as much as that's cool, it throws me off. I have I'm a little bit on the spectrum. So like it throws me off sometimes. But I don't know that I want that type of life.
Yeah. I, I,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you should be very proud of what you've done, though. I mean, I think it's really amazing. I feel like I'm really kissing ass, but there's not a lot of people that I would respect the way that I respect what you've done on TikTok. And again, I think my respect came whenever I read an article about you that you are a heterosexual male and you are so supportive of the LGBTQ plus community. And I think that's what first drove, and then I started watching your videos and learning more about you and stuff. And it's just, everything that you were talking about, it just started resonating and stuff. And I've even learned something in this call about not being an ally. Like,
Right,
I,
right, right.
I love it that you taught me that. As a gay man, you taught me that about my own community and stuff. So I think it's amazing. So
Yeah.
it's really been a pleasure having you on. I
It's
want
been a pleasure
everyone
being here. I loved having this conversation.
to please go and follow Mr. Jones X on TikTok. Um, I go to his website because I bought 3 amazing t-shirts last night. Tough.ldt is the website. Go there.
LTD, LTD.
LTD, yep.
Yeah, tough.ltd, yep.
Tough.ltd,
Yeah.
and go there. And I bought 3 different types of t-shirts last night, and they're all amazing, super cool design. The Kamala one is, I had to get me and my aunt one, so go there and check it out. And thank you so much for being on. And like I said, I think you're really amazing, and I'm so glad I got to have this conversation with you. So
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
You too.